After a bit of a quiet stretch of weather over the next few days, the weather will be really ramping up this weekend as severe storms return. Right now, we're pretty quiet across the country over the next few days. There won't be too much to talk about. That's quickly going to change though as we head into the end of the week. Notice in our weather pattern, we'll have fairly zonal flow over the next few days, which is where our jet stream is just flat without a lot of bumps or ridges, which is largely contributing to our quiet weather. As we head to the end of the week though, we get some big time troughing out in the western US. We get two separate storm systems. The first one moving here over the Rockies, another one developing toward California. This is increasing the moisture, increasing the energy, and leading to potentially another round of damaging severe thunderstorms. This is pretty common for this time of year, but nonetheless it could be dangerous, and we definitely want to get the word out early. Today is Tuesday, April 7th, and today in the weather world, we'll dive into everything you need to know, covering that severe weather threat late week. As I mentioned before that risk arrives, we just have pretty quiet weather. We're actually in a bit of a cooler stretch behind a pretty strong cold front that moved through much of the country. This cooler air will linger over the next few days, especially in the north and the Midwest portions of the Northeast. Some pretty cold temperatures are expected, especially for April standards. And it's been a really warm March over much of the country, so it'll be even more of a shock. Eventually though, as we go later into the week, the warmth will start to rebuild. This is out ahead of our next storm system, and this is some of the fuel that'll be combining with a lot of moisture to potentially bring some more strong to severe storms. But in the meantime, until that comes, we got a bit of a quieter stretch with some cooler weather in place. Translating that to temperatures, notice we have a few late season freezes across portions of the north, some 20s and 30s expected, 40s and 50s extending all the way down to the Gulf Coast, and then over the next few days, highs only in the 60s and 70s. Compared to the 80s and 90s we've been, it's going to be a lot cooler. In the north, we're stuck in the 30s and 40s for your high temperatures, so this is some of that chill that's coming. Wednesday morning, a widespread freeze across most of the northeast, and then eventually the air mass will modify. Notice more 70s popping up as we head toward the later part of the week into next weekend. But for the next few days, prepare for some freezes in the north and some of that colder air coming in. Now in terms of precipitation, as I mentioned, we're pretty quiet. Something I do want to note though, if you're watching this video early enough, we're going to have a quick dash of snow across portions of the Midwest and the plains on Tuesday, today. So a quick burst of snow over portions of Iowa, might reach into northern Missouri, far western Illinois before kind of petering out, but it could be a quick burst of 1 to 2 even isolated higher amounts of snow. So something to watch out for if you're traveling in that area. Make sure to use some caution with some of the slick roads possible. The other area I want to point out is Florida, where some pretty heavy rain is expected over the next few days. We have a stalled cold front over the area that's just going to be focusing a lot of moisture, so prepare for a lot of rain, really not just one day but really through the whole entirety of the week, especially along the East Coast. That's where some of the highest flooding concerns are. I'll talk about that more in a minute. This is good news though, we are in pretty extreme drought, so hopefully that'll help alleviate some of the concerns. For the rest of the country though, again, pretty quiet until we get to late week. That's when activity starts wrapping up ahead of our severe weather risk. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Watch out though for Florida. We have some minor flood risk for today, also tomorrow, Wednesday. Nothing crazy, but isolated ponding, some minor street flooding is possible. Always remember to turn around, don't drown. Alright, severe weather will be returning to the forecast as soon as Wednesday. Now this risk looks pretty small. It's just a tiny marginal risk across Kansas, but this is the beginning of a larger scale pattern change that is really ramping up the energy and the moisture. Currently Thursday and Friday we don't have severe weather outlooks, at least as of this recording on Monday evening. I do expect though, especially for Friday, for some probabilities to be added in the coming days, so be on the lookout for that. The next highlighted risk day we have though is on Saturday, where the Storm Prediction Center has a pretty rare day 6 slight risk of severe weather across West Texas, extending into the Panhandle as well as portions of Oklahoma. So by this point we're gonna have a lot more energy, a lot more moisture ramping in. I'll show you that in a minute, but across this corridor especially, we could have very large hail, tornadoes, gusty winds. All of that is possible, and over the next few days this threat will likely get upgraded, especially considering how high confidence we have this far out, and then it'll also expand a little bit, so you'll want to stay in touch for the forecast for more details. It doesn't end there though. On Sunday, which is a full 7 days out as of this recording, the Storm Prediction Center has an even bigger slight risk, now extending into Kansas, extending a little eastward toward the I-35 corridor, including Norman and just near Dallas and Austin. And again, this will likely expand and upgrade in the next few days. So just the fact that we have 2 back-to-back days of severe weather probabilities, this means the Storm Prediction Center has pretty high confidence this far out that there'll be some severe weather, and as we get closer in time, as confidence increases, the threats will likely only increase. So this is just a region we're highlighting, but definitely expect some more broader severe weather concerns to be possible, and we'll really nail down the details as we get closer. So let's talk about some of the parameters in place that will be leading to our severe weather threat. First of all is these 2 storm systems off the west coast I mentioned. We can see them pretty clearly here, one moving through California in the Four Corners, another following in the Pacific. These will be moving to the northwest, bringing a lot of wind energy aloft and really just priming the atmosphere. This one, especially over California, late week into early next week, could be pretty potent, so a lot of energy will be coming in place in the upper levels of the atmosphere. We can then combine that with a lot of moisture. Moisture is always essential for severe weather. Over the next few days, all this dry air over the country, this is what's really keeping things quiet and on the colder side. Notice the changes in the air mass over the next few days. Look at that that moisture will really be surging north, and by the time we get into Friday and Saturday, we're gonna have this plume of moisture, especially in this blue color. That's where dew points could be greater than 60 degrees. That's really gonna start to lead to our expanding severe weather threat, especially over the plains. That's why we have that early risk, but it will extend pretty far north. The GFS model says 60-degree dew points could get all the way into Iowa, Nebraska, even near the Dakota. So something we'll be watching out for, a little bit of a northward expansion of the severe weather threat with time as the moisture advex. The main takeaway though is look how much more moisture and instability we have to work with as we get into the weekend. So not only will we notice that increasing mugginess and humidity, but this is one of those big changes that'll make the severe weather threat possible and particularly damaging. Finally, tracking out our CAPE values, this is our thunderstorm energy, convective available potential energy, and we're quiet over the next few days. Again, no severe weather expected. We have that little blip of severe weather possible on your day Wednesday. Really the more significant severe weather concerns though will hold off into the weekend. And look at this big plume of higher level CAPE expanding northward, especially over the southern plains where some of that more rich moisture is present. Some of these green areas, that indicates higher end CAPE values. That means we have a lot more energy to work with for thunderstorms that form. So I'm just showing all these different ingredients to explain a little bit why we have this much confidence this far out in potential severe weather. The details will change, the specific locations will change a little bit. There's still some low confidence with that, but the signals are there. We have moisture, we have energy, we have a lot of upper level wind shear, and especially over the southern plains where all of those ingredients overlap, some damaging storms are possible Friday into the upcoming weekend. Just taking an early stab at some of the timing, again, we really want to emphasize this will change in the coming days because we're just too far out to have specific details, but we can get a general sense of what we're expecting. So by your day Thursday, some storms will be possible across portions of the middle plains, Nebraska, into Iowa, and Missouri, and we'll have to watch out for a lower end severe weather threat here that could ramp up over the coming days. Friday will really be the first day when all that moisture and energy will interact. Notice the development of fairly numerous thunderstorms across Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and it's really this corridor that we'll be seeing the repeating rain day after day as our weather pattern settles in. So Saturday we get some more thunderstorms forming. Something to watch is out across West Texas and the western plains near the Rocky Mountains, we're gonna have a dry line set up. This will separate all the drier air of the desert with the more humid air that I showed building up, and this will really serve as a focus point for storms. So any storms that fire off that dry line could be particularly intense with hail and wind. Some potential dry line storms later on Saturday over West Texas. Some of these red colors, that's some pretty high intensity storms with hail, tornadoes, wind, all that is possible. This will continue Sunday. By the time we get to Monday, things get even more uncertain, but especially Friday through Saturday, you can see that area where numerous storms are possible, and we're really honing in on the threat in this area during that time frame. Another aspect of storms will be training thunderstorms. If we get multiple rounds of rain over the same areas, flooding could become a concern. So a pretty wide stretch all the way from Texas up into the Midwest. Details on this will change in the coming days, but a pretty solid rainfall footprint over this region, and especially considering the heavy rain we have had over the past few days, some higher rivers, flooding could become a compounding problem. So just another aspect of the forecast that we're watching, and just an early heads up on some beneficial but potentially problematic rainfall. We already have some low end flood risks. This is for Thursday with the onset of some of that rain over the plains, and then on Friday over some of the same areas. Still lower end for now, but this could potentially be upgraded in the next few days. And taking a look a little bit further into the future, notice that our weather pattern will sustain warmer weather over much of the country. So this cooler and quieter stretch we're having over the next few days, that'll quickly disappear as much warmer weather takes over. More interestingly though, we're also looking at a continued emphasis for wet weather, especially across the southern plains over some of those areas most at risk for severe weather. So anytime we have wet weather in spring, this is a pretty good signal for severe weather chances, just considering the instability in the environment. And we are starting to head into the peak of severe weather season later on April and especially in May. So we're watching this closely, but this could be the beginning of an extended wetter weather pattern toward the middle of April, which is very different than what we've been seeing in March when most of us was just record heat and dry. So early heads up, this is all still in the future. We'll sort out the details in the coming days, but even after this weekend, some more rounds of rain and potential storms is coming. So that's all for the world of weather. Thanks for watching. We'll have a lot more details in the coming days on that severe weather, so keep it here on the channel if you want more information on that. Until we get there though, mainly quiet weather over the next few days, just a bit of a chill in the air, and then the severe weather will really start ramping up on Friday. Thanks for watching and see you next time.